Man, this can only age terribly. Welcome to the way too early 2024 mock draft. This draft order is roughly set based on Super Bowl odds, I presume. I was going to make the graphics myself like I usually do at the start of the year, but PFF had it ready to go, so I figured why not stick here and make it easy. And this is kind of less so about getting the exact draft pick correct, although that would be nice. It's more so about kind of introducing you guys to some of the prospects that you will come to know very well over the next year, I would guess. And I think that's pretty much all the disclaimers I need to do. Some of these players will end up going undrafted. Some players will return to school. Some players will come out of nowhere and enter the first round that are not even thought of as potential first round picks at this moment. And it's going to be an interesting one. I've taken some liberties, but, you know, the draft, obviously, as we know, is unpredictable. Let's get things started. No trades except for one. So the Cardinals have back-to-back picks in this scenario. And I can totally understand the line of thinking that says the Cardinals just stick and pick. They'd pick Caleb Williams, who is one of the best quarterback draft prospects we've seen in the past decade plus. I think he's right in that upper echelon, along with Trevor Lawrence, along with Andrew Luck. He is a phenomenal prospect. And you're going to hear some lofty comparisons over the next year. He is very, very good. He would have gone number one overall in 2023. I could guarantee it. And Drake May, very, very good as well. I think he also would have gone number one overall, you know, if Caleb Williams wasn't eligible and you know, he was put in the same scenario, but for Drake May. However, the Kyler Murray contract is just so tough to get out of, and he's a better than average quarterback anyway, but the contract is just immovable pretty much. So they could either trade him and agree to some type of split of that contract and of that money, but that's a lot to deal with. So we're just going to have another team trade up, and that's going to be the Bucs, who are projected at number 3 right now. I can tell you it would be a haul for Arizona. Now, I would guess at least 3 first-round picks. We don't have access to anything in 2026 right now, unfortunately, but I would guess it would be 3 first-round picks. Now, only moving up a couple spots, maybe that wouldn't cost a ton, but I can tell you at minimum, it would be 2 first-round picks. Maybe a player would be involved as well. And the Bucs have traded up for the rights to draft Caleb Williams from USC. He is phenomenal. Arm talent for days, mobility. He's a play extender. Caleb Williams is phenomenal. Really accurate as well. You know, legendary tweet I put out. Texas is playing Oklahoma in the yearly Red River Showdown, Red River rivalry game. And Texas is beating the hell out of Oklahoma. And I'm a big Texas fan. I'm all on board. And you're going to see some Texas players in this draft, by the way. I took so much heat in 2022. Oh, no Texas players drafted? It's like the no bitches meme. Listen, in 2024, watch out. You already saw Bijan go top 10 in 2023. Watch out in 2024, because there are some guys that could go high, and we're going to show them in this video. But Caleb Williams comes into the game at halftime after I tweeted and said, man, I've seen this story so many times before, but I think the only thing that could lead Oklahoma to win is like a surprising Caleb Williams entrance at halftime, and they come back to win. And unfortunately, as a Texas fan, it happened. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but he's a phenomenal prospect. Transferred to USC, teamed up with Lincoln Riley again, of course, the former Oklahoma head coach, and dominated, of course. Had some big-time receiving options as well, Jordan Addison being the big one. And this year, there are a couple as well. Dorian Singer transferred from Arizona. Mario Williams transferred from Oklahoma. And those are some 2 massive receiver options. Mario Williams was there last year and had a decent season, but we'll see what happens in 2023, which sounds like a fake year. But then at number 2, we have a prospect who you may recognize the name, even if you're not a college football fan, Marvin Harrison, one of the best receivers of all time. His son is not in his same build at all. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a freak. About 6'4", really good route runner, exceptional ball skills. He is the best receiver in the draft. I think these 2 things will stay constant. Caleb Williams, best quarterback. Marvin Harrison Jr., best receiver. I'd be really surprised to see that change, but we'll see what happens. And then the Cardinals, back-to-back picks. Pretty awesome scenario for them. I'm going to have them taking Dallas Turner, edge rusher from Alabama. He's certainly had flashes, kind of more prototypical size than Will Anderson Jr. is off the edge, although not quite the same player thus far at Alabama, and that's tough to live up to. Anderson Jr. is incredible, but Dallas Turner has all the makings of a surefire top 10 pick. And not for sure going to go top 10, obviously, but he has the makings. And that's a lot of what this way too early mock draft stuff is projecting guys to take steps up. Doesn't always happen. Kelee Ringo is a great example of that in the way too early 2023 mock draft to the actual 2023 NFL draft. But Dallas Turner, I think, could go very, very high. And the Cardinals just really need to stick and pick and go best player available. And I think that could be Dallas Turner. They could end up going tackle maybe, but I've decided against it. At number 4, right now for me, based on really watching him in 2022, because he was draft eligible, Olu Fashanu, I think, is the best tackle in the draft. I think he absolutely would have been the first tackle off the board in 2023. He returns to Penn State to finish his education. Super lame. No, it's admirable. But I am going to go Joe Alt. He is a former tight end, 6'7", 6'8", massive frame, but has that, ex-tight end athleticism. And we get to keep the Indiana storyline, It's kind of a fun storyline this far out. It's not too serious at this point, right? At number 5, I think he could be the second pick in the draft, depending on trades and whatnot, but we're pretty much going to keep it stock. It's Drake May from UNC, another incredible quarterback, great pocket presence, big time arm. I know I've seen some Justin Herbert comparisons thrown out there, at least in terms of play style. Drake May, very mobile though, as well. Very, very good QB prospect. I think he is probably going to go a bit higher than this as it looks right now. But again, as I said, no trades. Cardinals, we have passing on a quarterback. And then the Colts obviously just took Anthony Richardson at 4. Not going to double dip. So Drake May over another UNC quarterback, Sam Howell. I didn't even realize that until just now. Would be a very fun pick for them at number 5. And then at number 6, that frees us up to go Olu Fashanu to the Packers. Very, very good draft prospect. And this is just kind of how the Packers draft. They beef up the trenches. They don't really take those playmakers. So even with Brock Bowers on the board, back-to-back tight ends, pretty high in this past draft on day 2, say that they're probably going to look to go a different direction. We can bet it's probably not going to be receiver. So I would say tackle or corner, given the board, makes a lot of sense. Maybe it's Kool-Aid McKinstry, who not his real name, as you might guess. It's just a nickname. And that frees him up as the 7th overall pick. We thought that maybe there was a chance the Raiders would go corner this year at 7. But if they choose to still not go QB, Kool-Aid McKinstry makes sense. Otherwise, I could see any of these QBs really. J.J. McCarthy, Quinn Ewers, Bo Nix. Michael Penix could end up being a first-round pick. Quarterbacks go high nowadays. Quarterbacks get drafted very, very high. Kool-Aid McKinstry, I think, makes sense if you're not going to go QB, but it could very easily be Quinn Ewers if he takes a step up in 2023. It could be J.J. McCarthy. It could be Bo Nix. He was great last year at Oregon. Michael Penix has put up some incredible numbers at UW. There are some options. At number 8, going with J.C. Latham from Alabama. Right tackle for him, has been very, very good as a pass blocker. Great athlete, great size. Tennessee really could use help on the offensive line. Still, Skoronski's going to play guard for them. Tackle, still very much a large need. And then I'm getting fancy, all right? At number 9, going Brock Bowers. Bowers is a very, very good tight end prospect. Better than any in this year's class. I can say that very confidently and comfortably, the best tight end prospect since Kyle Pitts. And the Rams have so many needs. I get that. But I just think that Sean McVay, being the offensive guru that he is, would really relish the opportunity to add Brock Bowers to that offense. And you'll have another run-after-catch monster alongside Cooper Kupp. He can play in line. He can play in the slot. He is tremendous after the catch. That is his biggest strength, in my opinion. A very, very good athlete. And Tyler Higbee, his contract will be up by this time next year. So it makes sense that they would look to move on and get an upgrade over, Bryson Hopkins. So yeah, and they do have Hunter Long. They traded for him in the Jalen Ramsey trade. I don't think that would stop them from taking Brock Bowers, although they could just choose to go a different direction with tight end being a less valuable position, but you're not going to find somebody like Brock Bowers in this draft. As much as I love JT Sanders, hook 'em horns, Jaheim Bell is kind of like more of an H-back. I'd be surprised to see him go first round, but we've seen crazier things happen. Chicago Bears at 10. I have Jared Verse. monster edge rusher from Florida State, was draft eligible this past year, watched him, was super impressed. He was really somebody who came on strong. University of Albany transfer and dominated LSU to start the year in that kickoff game. He was phenomenal, continued throughout the entire year. Very good player. And don't be confused by this next position. I'm going Mason Smith. He is not an edge rusher, in my opinion. He is an interior defensive lineman. And while I understand that the Bears invested 2 fairly high picks on the interior of the defensive line, you could still certainly use help there. Javon Dexter was, I don't think, a top 50 pick, and certainly Zach Pickens was not. Mason Smith, another super highly rated recruit, just like those guys, but offers a ton of pass rush on the interior. And it also, I think, is a perfect scheme fit for them. So just kind of like a great mix here. Mason Smith would have continued to put up huge numbers if he wasn't injured. And I think on a celebration too, unfortunate. But really, really good player. And the Bears are one of those teams that could go in a bunch of different directions. Still a lot of holes on that roster. As much as Ryan Poles, I think, has done a decent job of filling some of those, you still have needs on the front 7, in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Really, I could see them going offensive line here if they wanted to do that. But I don't think they have to, because you look left to right, you have Braxton Jones, you have Tevin Jenkins will probably play left guard, Cody Whitehair back to center, signed Nate Davis in free agency and drafted Darnell Wright in the top 10. I don't think you have to go offensive line, but we'll see what changes from now to the 2024 draft. Patriots at 12, have them going Michael Hall. I think they would have loved Mason Smith to be available as it stands right now. But Hall from Ohio State is a very, very good player on what is a very good defensive line. You look at what Ohio State has, and between Michael Hall, Jack Sawyer, and JT Tuimoloau, you have some really, and even Tyleik Williams as well, you have some really, really talented defensive linemen. And you could honestly see any of those guys sneaking into the first round or getting in comfortably in the case of, I think, at least JT Tuimoloau as it stands right now. It's a talented edge class. Leatu Latu is a player, like really, really good off the edge. JT Tuimoloau is still developing, had a monster game against Penn State. Chop Robinson's shown flashes. I really like Braylon Trice. And before injury, Zion Tupuola-Fatui was super, super productive in 2021, or was it 2020? Tough to remember. Jack Sawyer is a former top-rated recruit that you think could take another step up. Corey Foreman along those same lines. I think he might have been the number 1 recruit in his recruiting class to USC, was at least top 5. So he's somebody you could easily see going very high. Jacoby Windman, I think, has been super productive. It's going to be very, very tough to see, which guys get in when we're looking at it a year out. But the defensive line class, including the edge rushers, seems to be very, very good, and that's why I have one going off the board here next. It's JT Tuimoloau from the Ohio State University to the Falcons. They need help on the edge. Tuimoloau, if he continues to develop, should be a first-round pick and will help them out significantly. Also a bigger guy, I think between 270, 280. Very different from what you already have in Arnold Ebiketie. So you had someone who projects more as like a traditional edge setter as opposed to Ebiketie, who is your more traditional 3-4 rush linebacker. Giants at 14. This one I'm going to get a little bit weird with because I am taking a chance, and this isn't even necessarily Texas bias. Some of you will know where I'm going with this. Probably most of you think I might be talking about Xavier Worthy. I'm going A.D. Mitchell. Georgia receiver, has dominated when healthy. Has made some big plays in the college football playoff over the years, which is like kind of crazy to say. Transferred to Texas, and he's 6'3"-ish, 6'4", big-bodied, end zone, red zone receiver that can really make plays in the football and stretch the field. Decent athlete. And has he been more productive than any of these receivers? Emeka Ibuka, Xavier Worthy? No. Even Johnny Wilson? No. Like, none of these guys. Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors, none of them. However, he just hasn't been healthy. When he's been available, he's been incredible. And even when you look back to some of those college football playoff games, A.D. Mitchell was coming in and starting those games when he was healthy over guys who had been there the entire year. So obviously Kirby Smart and company thought very highly of him, and he produced in those games. If he's able to stay healthy in a Texas offense that really should air out the ball significantly in 2023, it would not be shocking based on his, height, weight, speed profile. And he's not like the craziest athlete ever. I don't know that he's going to run in the 4.3s or anything. We'll see what happens. But I think has the profile of a receiver that could go high. And for the Giants picking, it makes more sense to add a bigger bodied receiver, in my opinion. Although a true separator like Worthy could make sense, or Rome Odunze, smooth operator, Malik Neighbors. You just worry with some of those smaller guys that maybe it's just another slot guy to add to the mix. And even with the addition of Jalen Hyatt, the Giants might have too many of those. Broncos at 15. I know. You're going to see what happens, and it is what it is. I'm going with Quinn Ewers from Texas. I know. I'm throwing him up today. Quinn Ewers is the former highest-rated quarterback recruit of all time, tied with Vince Young, and now, of course, Arch Manning, not Archie. Everyone asks me, is Archie Manning going to start this year? Archie Manning's like 75 years old. He's not starting anywhere. He's maybe starting up like AARP Super Benefits Club. I don't even know what's going on with that. But Arch Manning, Quinn Ewers, like those are similarly hyped prospects. Arch, of course, bigger because of the name, but same grade. Quinn Ewers just has to put it all together. Has been a little bit inconsistent so far, but a big 2023 without Bijan Robinson getting a lot of the touches in the backfield could make Quinn Ewers a first-round pick easily. And this is not Texas bias. This is something that could easily happen if he continues to develop. And then number 16, I have the Seattle Seahawks. I'm going Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Eagles fans will remember Jeremiah Trotter well. Really talented player for them. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is probably the best off-ball linebacker in this class right now. Seahawks, we've seen, are not afraid to take that position in the first round, although it is tough to see linebackers going round one. It's rare nowadays. We saw one in 2023 in Jack Campbell at 18, but the fifth-year option of Jordan Brooks was not picked up, probably due to a little bit of injury going on. Could just get another one in the mix, and the Seahawks, I think, could be a team that could do it. Steelers at 17, another player, Laiatu Latu. He is very, very good. Bend off the edge, athleticism, size. I think he's like 260 plus, but moves really, really well. The Steelers might be losing out on Alex Highsmith. You could certainly use more of an edge rotation anyway. So Laiatu Latu is the pick there at 17. And then the Vikings at 18. I think I have them going Bengal King, cornerback from Penn State. Never been one drafted in the first round, but maybe King breaks the mold. Very good athlete. And, of course, with Joey Porter Jr., just missing out in the first round, although was pick number 32. You know, he got a ton of looks. Had an incredible number of passes defense this past year. So, you know, the ball skills are there, even if the interceptions aren't like an incredible number. We know that doesn't really matter a ton anyways. And he still had 3 of them, which is certainly not bad. Texans at 19, going Jerzon Newton. Johnny Newton from Illinois. I don't know how you get Johnny from Jerzon, but apparently he might go by Johnny. They just need help all over the place. Newton is also a really, really good player. Offers a ton of pass rush on the interior, high effort player. And the Texans just need help on the interior of the defensive line and all over the place, really. That depth chart is still a mess. I know they're maybe expected to take a step up in 2023. We'll have to see because they're just not all the way there yet. Another year of this. I tweeted it out and I said, listen, Saints fans, it's going to be another year of me mocking an Ohio State receiver to you all year. And that's just probably what's going to happen. And we know the Saints like to do it. It just makes too much sense. Emeka Egbuka there at number 20. I'm not sure he's going to go as high as people are thinking, just because I'm not sure he has the profile of a wide receiver 1. However, Chris Olave didn't really, and he ended up being, you know, a top, I think he was a 12th overall pick, and the Saints moved up for him. So Emeka Egbuka could go earlier than this. Former super highly ranked recruit as well. Very productive, usually very reliable hands as well. Definitely a really good player, and he's in this way too early first round mock draft for a reason. Dolphins at 21. We're going to go with offensive lineman Kingsley Suamataia. He is a former top recruit. That's the trend with a lot of these in these way too early mock drafts. He was a commit to Oregon, formerly from Utah, moved to Hawaii, moved back to Utah, and then, of course, ended up at BYU and has played very, very well for them. And yeah, the level of competition at BYU, you wonder if that's not like incredible. Well, they're moving to the Big 12. So Kingsley Suamataia has an opportunity to prove himself against some better competition on a more regular basis, even though the Big 12 is not exactly renowned for superstar pass rushers, despite one going in the top 10 this past year in Tyree Wilson. But he's someone that could definitely help out that offensive line for Miami, which is not very good. At 22 for the Ravens, I'm going to go with a corner. It's Cooper DeJean from Iowa. Yes, the first name is not meant to throw you off. He is another white corner from Iowa. Saw Riley Moss go fairly high to the Broncos this past year. And I know it's a rarity. That's the only reason why I pointed out. It's like, well, you think a corner can't be white? Historically, not really. We haven't really seen many in the last 20 years. But Cooper DeJean is a really, really solid athlete, has decent ball production as well, and just could end up being a first-round pick. Has ideal size for the position as well. And in a DB class where we're really not sure about some of these guys, Denzel Burke needs to continue to improve. Javon Bullard might just be a nickel. Cameron Kinch is a good player for sure, but it's tough to get those safeties into the first round. Malachi Moore is someone that, was the former star player for Alabama. That's their nickel player. And Brian Branch just took it over after Malachi Moore got injured. And then, again, it's tough for that type of a player to go round one. Now, we are going to see some, but it is difficult to predict where those safeties will end up going. And maybe against my better judgment, I am going to go Cameron Kinchins at number 23. Ball production was off the charts. I think he had 6 interceptions this past season at Miami. Really, really good player. Has been described as the quarterback of the defense at times, which I think could definitely elevate a safety to go higher in the draft because, that type of cerebral player in the back end is what made some of these safeties that we've seen over the past 20 years be better than great. Ed Reed, Troy Polamalu, those guys are some of the best of all time, and they're kind of viewed as the cerebral players of the back end. I'm not saying Cameron Kinchins is Troy Polamalu or Ed Reed, but that is a trait that those guys share that could elevate a guy like Kinchins, and it could be a reason why he plays so well. That was originally Braylon Trice for me, who I really, really like, but decided to mix it up here at the last second, and it's the way too early mock draft. Why not take some risks here? Because who knows about any of this? Cowboys at 24, going with a receiver. Xavier Worthy is a cool storyline. I worry if his size is going to hurt him from going in the first round. And his play in 2022 was less than desired. And I wonder with the addition of A.D. Mitchell, and you're going to get Isaiah Nayor back, who was a spring beast in 2022, didn't end up playing in the 2022 season. But it's going to be interesting to see. But that's a lot of Texas football talk just to say I'm going to go with Malik Nabers from LSU. Very productive. A lot of guys are saying he could be the next LSU receiver monster. And I have him going to the Cowboys that could use another receiver in the mix come this time next year. They do have Brandon Cooks. I don't know that that's a long-term option for them. And you have a potential out in his contract after 2023. So by the time the draft rolls around, he has 1 year left on his deal with what appear to be void years after that. So even with Brandon Cooks, though, they really have not shown that Michael Gallup's going to be the guy. And then it's just CeeDee Lamb. So you need another guy in the mix probably. And Nabers is a really, really good player. That's why he's in this first round mock. For the Packers, I'm going Javon Bullard from Georgia. Plays mostly in the nickel for them. Has played over the top a little bit, but mostly has played nickel corner. Now, it's tough to get those guys into the first round. It really, really is. And this could be a quarterback, depending on how Jordan Love plays. He signed a 1 year deal today instead of the 5th year option being picked up. That kind of adds some incentives for him to make a little bit more money depending on his play. But if it's not good, they could be like, all right, that experiment failed. They'll be picking much higher than this, and it could be a QB. But Javon Bullard satisfies the nickel / potentially could move back to safety full time. And that is going to be a position of need for Green Bay, in my opinion. I think their front seven's pretty good. Maybe it's an edge. But you did draft Lucas Van Ness. You have Rashawn Gary, who's a beast. But you could get another one in there, of course. Wouldn't be entirely shocking. Of course, 2 first-round picks for them here. This is the Aaron Rodgers trade. If he plays 65% of his snaps, that's where they're going to be picking. It's going to be the Packers over the Jets. If he doesn't play 65% of these snaps for the Jets will be picking here. So right now it's the Packers. Could be the Jets. But if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, it is going to be the Packers. Lions at 26. Now, had them going corner earlier. I'm really tempted to go Braylon Trice because I think he could be a big draft riser and go a lot higher than this. Chop Robinson's here too, Zion Tupuola-Fatui, Jack Sawyer, Corey Foreman. It's a great edge class. It really, really is. But I think corner is going to be where they look to go. And that's just because you don't really have Emmanuel Mosley under contract for a long time. You moved out Jeff Okudah. You didn't take a corner high in this draft. Don't tell me Brian Branch. He's not a boundary guy like Denzel Burke is. You have Brian Branch who plays the nickel, who's going to be a great player for you. But he's not really going to be a boundary corner for them. I'd be surprised if he was. So you could get one of those into the mix. Denzel Burke in this scenario. Jags at 27. I originally had my guy JT Sanders here. This is now where Braylon Trice comes into the mix. It's, again, it appears to be a very, very good edge class overall because I've already watched a lot of these guys and I've been super impressed. You know, it was disappointing watching Washington and Trice not being eligible and watching UCLA and having Leatu Latu not be available. And then, of course, you know, when watching the Alabama defense, Dallas Turner will flash at times. Chop Robinson certainly flashed for Penn State. There are some really, really good edge rushers. I mean, Tuimoloau flashed. You're just looking for more consistent play. I think Latu and Trice have been more consistent than those guys, but I think those guys could end up going higher just based on their, I would say, recruiting background being highly ranked and also being highly productive at times. You know, having some big games like Tuimoloau. You know, it's weird to say highly productive when all of his sacks like came in one game pretty much, but you know, he had a game where he was dominant, and it's tough to see someone who's been dominant versus a guy who's just a little bit more consistent. But that's why these way too early mock drafts are really fun because a lot can change. Bills at 28. I think this is going to be Chop Robinson for me. Took Dalton Kincaid in round 1. Edge is a big question mark for them going forward. It could be interior defensive line as well, but Von Miller, older, coming off injury. And then Rousseau's been a decent player for you. Really haven't seen it from AJ Epineza or Boogie Basham up to this point. So getting another edge in the mix would not entirely surprise me. Eagles at 29 are a team that could like do anything. They really could go in so many different directions. I'm going to give them a receiver, and much to my annoyance, it's going to be Xavier Worthy from Texas. Everyone says, oh, you don't give the Eagles good picks. You don't want to see them take your favorite players. I had Bijan Robinson to them at the back end of the first round, like the entire process, pretty much. It's fake mock draft. This doesn't mean anything. It's just kind of a fun exercise here really early in the year to get to know some of these prospects for you guys. Xavier Worthy's a beast. He's undersized. He's a really good route runner, has big-time speed. His deep ball tracking was less than stellar in 2022. We'll see what 2023 has in store, but he's a really good player. Could end up going first round. He could go a lot higher than this depending on his season, I would say. Niners at 30. It's really, really tough to know what they're going to do. You know, they kind of march to the beat of their own drum. I haven't had a guard off the board. I think I'm going to go guard. In my original mock draft, it was Rome Odunze from Washington to get another receiver in the mix. Ben Pran's a really good center. I'm going to go Donovan Jackson from Ohio State. He could certainly go a lot higher than this as well, and it's an immediate upgrade for a 49ers interior offensive line. And you could even consider a tackle for them as well. Lost Mike McGlinchey in free agency. I think the Broncos scooped him up. And then I got to sneak in a running back. I think the Bengals at 31 would make sense, and there are some big names here. The two Michigan backs are pretty big names at this point. Rocket Sanders from Arkansas. Braylon Allen is a huge name from Wisconsin. Travion Henderson's been a little bit up and down with the injuries, and we all know it's very tough to get running backs in the first round. Trey Benson, honestly, I could see being the best of the bunch. Prototypical size, really good athlete. I know he's the last ranked running back on this list right now. I really, really like Trey Benson. However, I'm going to go with somebody I like a lot as well, and that's Rocket Sanders from Arkansas. He can fly, and he's huge. Over 6 feet, 230 pounds. He is a monster bell cow running back. Could definitely end up going round 1. Averaged like 6.5 yards per carry in 2022. It's a decent running back class next year. I know everyone's going to want it to be Blake Corum, and it certainly could be, or Travion Henderson, one of these Big Ten backs. I'm going SEC tried and true and getting Raheem Sanders into round 1. Very, very good player. It's tough to get these RBs in. I can't choose, 5 of them. But I do think there are at least 5 very good backs in this class with Rocket Sanders, Trey Benson, Donovan Edwards, Blake Corum, Travion Henderson, and Braylon Allen. I really don't know too much about Bucky Irving to this point. I'm sure that will change in 2023. And then the last pick of this first round, left some of these QBs on the board. Showed my Texas bias by taking Quinn Ewers before J.J. McCarthy or Bo Nix or Michael Penix or TVD, Spencer Rattler. It is what it is. Chiefs at 32. I've got a very, very fun pairing here. I am unfortunately leaving Rome Odunze on the board. He could be a first-round pick for sure. And Zion Tupelo-Fatui. I'm going Johnny Wilson from Florida State. He's a 6'7" wide receiver. He was a transfer from, I think, Arizona State. Pretty productive in 2022. Showed big-time flashes of being a true dominant force. The combination of height, weight, speed with him is tough to match up with. And at 32, it'd be worth taking a chance. We'll see if his 2023 is a little bit more consistent, but has all the makings of being a very high draft pick in the NFL. You just don't make guys like him that are 6'7", 240 that run as well as he does. You almost consider like a hybrid wide receiver tight end, but he plays on the outside, and I think it'd be a dominant big slot as well. If you want to move him to be an inline tight end, that'd be an interesting decision, but I wouldn't necessarily rule it out. Could go lower than this. He's got to be more consistent, but man, is he a really fun player. And that is the way too early 2023 or 2024, I got to get used to saying, mock draft. Is this going to age poorly? Oh, certainly. The only guys that I really think are guaranteed to be first-round picks at this point, I would say Williams, Harrison Jr., Turner, Alt, May, Fashanu, and Brock Bowers. Jared Verse, I think, will be, but it's tough to say for sure with a lot of these guys. But I would throw Verse in there maybe. Tuimoloau out needs to be more consistent. Other than that, it's tough. We're taking some shots down the board on some players I really like. Leatu Latu's a name to watch. Braylon Trice is a name to watch. Watch out for these pack edge rushers. They are talented, even though UCLA is eventually moving to the Big Ten, right? That'll be interesting. But thank you so much for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed. It's a silly exercise, but it's fun, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.